The world of organized crime has produced some of the wealthiest and most powerful figures in history. But who was the richest mafia boss of all time? This man didn't just control illegal businesses, he built an empire that made him richer than most billionaires. We are talking about Pablo Escobar, the king of cocaine. Let's dive into his history and see how he became the richest mafia boss ever. Click on the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay updated. Let's dive into it. Pablo Escobar, the billionaire king of cocaine. Pablo Escobar was not just a mafia boss, he was a legend in the world of organized crime. He built an empire so vast that it made him one of the richest criminals in history. At the height of his power, his fortune was estimated at around $30 billion, and that was in the 1990s. Adjusted for inflation, it would be over $70 billion today. He made more money than some small countries. His story is one of power, violence, and unimaginable wealth. Escobar was the mastermind behind the Medellin cartel, a drug empire that controlled nearly 80% of the world's cocaine trade. He was responsible for supplying the United States and other countries with thousands of tons of cocaine. The demand was high, and Escobar made sure he controlled the supply. Unlike many mafia bosses who stayed in the shadows, Escobar loved to show off his wealth. He bought luxurious mansions, private jets, exotic animals, and even his private zoo. He had so much cash that his cartel spent over $2,500 every month just on rubber bands to bundle the money together. His fortune was so massive that he had to bury money in fields and hide it in abandoned houses because banks couldn't handle it. But money alone wasn't enough for Escobar. He wanted power, and he got it. The rise of a criminal empire. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born in Rio Negro, Colombia, in 1949. He grew up in Medellin, a city that would later become the center of his empire. As a teenager, Escobar was already involved in petty crimes, like stealing cars and selling fake lottery tickets. But he had bigger ambitions. He wanted to be rich, and he didn't care how he got there. In the 1970s, he saw an opportunity in the drug trade. At the time, cocaine was starting to become popular in the United States, but there weren't many major suppliers. Escobar, along with a few others, realized this was a gold mine. He started smuggling small amounts of cocaine into the U.S., but soon he expanded his operations. He bought entire fleets of airplanes to transport cocaine from Colombia to Miami. These weren't just small shipments. Escobar's cartel was moving up to 15 tons of cocaine every single day. That's about $60 million worth of cocaine daily. His cartel had so much power that it controlled the entire drug market. Escobar's rise was extremely violent. He didn't just eliminate rivals. He wiped out entire families. If someone crossed him, they wouldn't just die. Their wives, children, and even distant relatives would also be killed. This created an atmosphere of total fear, making it nearly impossible for anyone to challenge him. One of his most infamous methods was plata o plomo, which means silver or lead. It was a simple choice. Take his bribe, silver, or get a bullet. Lead. This policy applied to judges, police officers, politicians, and even entire government institutions. If they refused to cooperate, they were assassinated. This tactic allowed Escobar to operate freely for years, as most officials were either too scared to act or were already in his pocket. Living like a king. With so much money flowing in, Escobar lived a life of unmatched luxury. He owned over 800 houses and properties across Colombia and abroad. One of his most famous properties was Hacienda Nápoles, a massive estate covering over 7,000 acres. It had its private airport, racetracks, artificial lakes, and even a zoo filled with elephants, giraffes, and hippos that he imported from Africa. Escobar also bought entire neighborhoods for the poor in Medellin, earning him the nickname Robin Hood among some locals. Many Colombians saw him as a hero, believing he was giving back to the people. He built football fields, hospitals, and schools, which made him extremely popular in some areas. However, this was all part of his strategy to gain public support and make it harder for authorities to turn people against him. Despite his image as a man of the people, Escobar's brutality was unmatched. He ordered the deaths of thousands of people, including journalists, judges, and government officials. He even blew up a passenger plane, Avianca Flight 203, in 1989 because he believed a rival was on board. All 107 passengers were killed. This attack made it clear that Escobar would go to any lengths to maintain his power. The government's war against Escobar. By the late 1980s, the Colombian government, along with the United States, had had enough. They launched a full-scale war against Escobar. The U.S. sent elite DEA agents to help Colombian forces track him down. The government passed new laws, including an extradition agreement with the U.S., meaning Escobar could be sent to an American prison if caught. Escobar was determined not to be extradited. He made a shocking offer to the Colombian government. He offered to pay off Colombia's entire national debt, about $10 billion, if they agreed to cancel the extradition treaty. Of course, the government refused. In response, Escobar declared war on Colombia. He orchestrated massive bombings, assassinations, and attacks on government buildings. One of his most devastating attacks was in 1989 when he bombed the headquarters of the Colombian intelligence agency, DAS, killing 63 people and injuring hundreds. Realizing that he couldn't fight both the government and rival cartels forever, Escobar made an unusual move. He surrendered, but on his own terms. In 1991, he agreed to go to prison, but only if he could build his own jail. The government, desperate for peace, agreed. Escobar built La Catedral, the most luxurious prison ever. It wasn't really a prison at all. It had a nightclub, a casino, a football field, a jacuzzi, and even a waterfall. Escobar continued running his empire from inside the prison, hosting parties and living like a king. However, after a year, the government realized this was a mistake. When they tried to move him to a real prison, Escobar escaped. The fall of the king. After escaping, Escobar was on the run for 16 months. During this time, the Colombian government, with the help of the CIA, DEA, and a vigilante group called Los Pepes, hunted him down. His enemies wanted revenge, and they weren't going to stop until he was dead. On December 2, 1993, authorities tracked Escobar to a house in Medellin. As he tried to escape across the rooftops, he was shot and killed. Some believe the Colombian police took him down, while others claim Escobar shot himself in the head to avoid capture. Either way, his reign was over. Even after his death, Escobar's influence didn't disappear overnight. His cartel was eventually dismantled, but the cocaine trade continued. The power shifted to new cartels, and the drug business remained just as profitable. Today, many still view Escobar as both a villain and a folk hero. His legacy is complex. On one hand, he was a ruthless criminal responsible for countless deaths. On the other, he helped the poor and shaped Colombia's history in ways that are still felt today. Despite all the money and power, Escobar's fate was the same as many mafia bosses before him. He died on the run, hunted by the very people he once controlled. His story remains one of the most fascinating and terrifying tales in the history of organized crime. What do you think? Was Escobar just a ruthless criminal, or did his actions have a lasting impact on Colombia in a way that can't be ignored? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching.